Hey folks, Brian Bledsoe with you here once again, host of the Desert Farmer Podcast. Thanks so much for being with me on this Tuesday early evening. I know it's been a minute since we've spoken. I've had a lot of things going on, so my apologies for that. But today seemed like a great opportunity to sit down with y'all and talk a lot about weather. Before I get into that, I want to give a big shout out to all of the firefighters, both volunteer and otherwise, farmers, ranchers that have been dealing with the terrible wildfire situation across southeast Colorado, southwest Kansas, and southwestward back through the panhandles and even into parts of eastern New Mexico. I know it's been an awful time with that dry lightning outbreak that we had late last week and early in the weekend that really helped to touch off a lot of those major fires. And I'm thankful that we're actually able to get at least a little bit of a break weather-wise from that awful fire danger situation that we have been dealing with. So I hope you are well. I know it's been a very trying time on multiple fronts, especially when it comes to the weather that's been helping to facilitate that awful fire danger. My main message with this version, or edition, I should say, of the Desert Farmer Podcast is for those areas that haven't had any meaningful rainfall in really weeks or months. We are changing the pattern. And I want you to be very measured with your expectations with this pattern change, because we have a lot of work to do in terms of recovering and beating back this drought. And it is not all going to happen at once. And not everybody's going to see the amount of rain that they want to out of this. That's just kind of the pattern that we're in and the time of year that we're in, where we're going to have to rely on multiple days of shower and thunderstorm development to really get what we would get from a bigger, slow-moving storm system that a lot of times can come through in the late winter and the spring. We are getting out of that season. Now, I'm not saying that we can't achieve the same goals that we a lot of times have with those bigger storm systems. It just ends up being a lot more spotty because we are relying on thunderstorms to do the dirty work here. All right. So I know you're going to see a lot of different computer model information out there on social media and the internet or whatever, and a lot of it is not going to have any type of perspective at all associated with it. And it sets a lot of people up for just be disappointed when you look at that. So I want you to be very measured with your expectations. I'm going to do the best that I can to sort things out for you this afternoon. I do that every single day for my clients. And if you would like to become one of those clients, please feel free to hit me up. All right. You know what to do there with my phone number, my email address, or simply go to brianbledsoeweather.com, hit the blue bar right there on the homepage, leave your phone number and your email address so I have ways to get in touch with you. All right. Let's get underway. Talk some weather. Look at the past 30 days and see what's been going on. This is the look at the 30-day precipitation anomaly as a percent of normal here. All right. So we've been dry across most of Montana, northeast Wyoming, the Dakotas. We've had a ribbon of moisture here across most of Wyoming. We've had real good moisture in parts of Wyoming. And then as we come southward, we've had really excellent moisture in that sector too. Northeast Colorado, northwest Kansas. That 133 you see right there is St. Francis, Kansas. Do you know the last time that we have had great moisture rolling into spring in St. Francis, Kansas? It has been a while. Okay. It has been a while. And I'm happy to say that this corridor has had some excellent moisture, and we've been really beating back the drought after not having any winter at all. We've also had some really excellent moisture in this sector too. Now, again, this incorporates rain that we had yesterday, and last night in some places. Okay. This is through this morning. All right. We've also had moisture that's been okay in that segment. But here in the middle, it's just been a wreck. It's just been an absolute wreck. Okay. 59% of average in North Platte. Okay. 46% of average there in Alliance. Where have we got else? What else do we have here? How about 12% of average there in Dodge City? 2% of average right there in Amarillo, Texas. 7% in Clovis. 3% in Lubbock. It has been exceptionally dry in these areas. All right. But to be honest with you, really anything back here in southeast Colorado, southwest Kansas, eastern New Mexico, and west Texas, western Oklahoma, we haven't had moisture present to really get these showers and thunderstorms going to produce meaningful rainfall. Case in point, what we dealt with late last week and into Saturday with the dry lightning event. Now, had we had some better moisture farther west, we would have done okay with rain, but we didn't. All right. And that has been a microcosm of the pattern that has gotten us in trouble over the past several weeks and months. All right. And it has put us in this position with the short-term drought index. You don't need me to tell you who's in bad shape. All right. This sector here, and I know there's spots outside of that circle that is a problem. All right. And this sector here have really been in awful shape. Now, Northeast Colorado, East Central Colorado, and into Northwest Kansas, we beat back that drought lately with some rain. This was taken yesterday, all right? So it doesn't incorporate a lot of the rain that we saw across parts of Kansas yesterday where we had some big rains, okay? Areas farther south down here have been doing okay. Basically, okay, in that corridor, that narrow corridor, I could have incorporated a little more Missouri there. That's where we've had better moisture, all right? But we've got a lot of work to do as far as beating the drought back. Now, let's look at what the forecast precipitable water is here. Percent of normal. And precipitable water is a measure of the amount of moisture or fuel you have in the atmosphere to be able to produce meaningful rainfall. Let's just look at that from May 20th. Today's the 19th that I'm recording. So we start out the 20th, and we're going to go through June 3rd. This is where we start out tomorrow morning. Anywhere you're seeing the browns, again, a percent of normal, the anomaly. So wherever you're seeing the greens, you're in good shape. Some of these precipitable waters here are excellent in eastern New Mexico, eastern Colorado, even in the western parts of Texas, western Kansas, all right? But where you're seeing the browns, not so much. We want this green to stay back here across the west and expand. Are we going to accomplish that? Well, let's put it into motion. Do you see what's going on here? The fact that we've been able to open up the Gulf and bring moisture westward is huge. This is the first time that we've been able to see these type of precipitable water values not just show up for 1 or 2 days, but consistently be pushed and placed farther west. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other areas that are benefiting that too. You see things lighting up here in the middle part of the country. And again, this is just the availability of moisture. We've got to start with that first, because if we don't have the moisture available, well, then we're not talking about meaningful rain, all right? And there will be times where it kind of waxes and wanes a little bit, but I like the trend here, folks. I like the trend. Not going to lie to you. And I've been talking a lot about this to the individual folks that I work for now for the past, week or so, couple of weeks, that this pattern change was going to be something that we haven't seen so far this late winter and spring. And as we wrap things up on June 3rd here, the morning of June 3rd, look at all this. Look at all that. We have precipitable water values at 130% of average up here in southeast Montana. Almost 150% of average here in southeast Wyoming, southeast Colorado, western Kansas. These areas here that haven't had any moisture present for storms to utilize are finally going to start to get some. Now, does that equate into all the rain that you want all the time? Absolutely not. And it goes back to the message that I said originally, that we've got to be measured about this stuff. All right? Responsible from a forecaster standpoint, responsible as a consumer of that forecast information. All right? It's a two-way street here. Let's look at the forecast precipitation anomaly from the 20th through the 27th. Just model data today. This is the regular European ensemble. All right? Look at the above average moisture that it's forecasting here. All right? Pretty much anywhere along and south of that line. And bullseye in some areas that haven't seen much. Now, I got to be real with you here. Southeast Texas, northeastward, we're going to have some flooding problems here. But there's drought here, all right? There's drought in some of these areas farther east. So there's going to be some welcome rainfall in here. Back here to the west, we'll take all she'll give us. All right. But that's what the regular European ensemble looks for that 7-day period. Again, the 20th through the 27th. The artificial intelligence European ensemble is kind of on board with the same thing. A little bit drier, but typically speaking, the European artificial intelligence ensemble is almost always drier than the regular European ensemble. And I always say this too, reality is likely in the middle between the two. All right. But you can see some areas that are going to get drier. All right. In this pattern. Let's look at the 27th through the 3rd. So May 27th through June 3rd. Same models. We still have that signal. In fact, one could argue that we've got a decent signal pretty much through this whole corridor. All right. Still a little bit drier in the Great Lakes, up here in Iowa, maybe northeast Nebraska. But you know what? These areas have had some water lately. So that's all right. The artificial intelligence is a little bit drier with that. But it still generally has, okay, that area along and south of that line in a better setup. Even if it's not above average where you are, even if it's just a tick below average, it's better than what it's been. All right. And there's always a potential to have a happy accident. We are in happy accident season. All right. Where sometimes the models don't pick up on outflow boundaries and what they're going to do on a day-to-day basis. The previous day's thunderstorm event determines what you're going to have today, and today's thunderstorm event determines what we're going to get tomorrow. We're in that season. All right. So just focus on the trend. Don't get excited or shook about the exact numbers on this. And I say that because I'm going to do something that I usually don't like to do, but I want to quantify and qualify what we're looking at here. Forecast total precipitation. This is total expected rainfall, May 20th through June 3rd. I'm going to show you a couple of different models here. This is the forecast from the regular European ensemble. All right. Look at this. Okay. Very wet through that sector, especially eastern Oklahoma, east and southeast Texas, as I showed you there. But look outside of there. We're doing all right up here. Don't focus on the exact number. Please look at the trend. Look at the model trend. Let's go to the European artificial intelligence. As I said, it's almost always drier, but it still has some pretty good totals across areas that haven't seen much of anything in the past several months, really. All right. The European artificial intelligence, the individual model, goes off the chain here in the middle. Look at that. Okay. But notice it is drier west of that line. Okay. It is drier. It is definitely wetter east. We always know, well, I should say most of the time, it is wetter east. All right. But it has some pretty big totals in here. So the three different Euro products right there, I didn't even show you the deterministic because a lot of times it just simply overdoes things. But that's what those three products are. This is the GFS ensemble. You know how I feel about the GFS model. All right. But it's showing some of the same things. All right. Look at these huge bullseyes here across central and east Texas, east and southeast Oklahoma, and northeastward. But it's also placing some very generous totals back here across the west and southwest high plains. If we switch to the artificial intelligence GFS ensemble, it's doing the same thing, just to a lesser degree. All right. So all of these models are exhibiting kind of the same pattern in what to look for. And inevitably, what will determine how much rain we don't see or we do see is how these thunderstorms develop on a daily basis. Will they have moisture to develop on a daily basis? Well, I've already showed you that they will. So it's just a matter of the individual details every single day being ironed out. One of the impact or the things that will impact this forecast is the global relative atmospheric angular momentum through June 21st. When we see these members here, these colored lines above that zero line, that means that the westerlies are sped up. That means our pattern isn't blocky and slow moving. It means that we still have things coming through. And to be honest with you, through most of June here, we have very good atmospheric angular momentum for this time of year. that means that we are going to have storm systems coming through. We're not going to slow it down. Now, if we were to see this drop down here, we would have the exact opposite. We would have a very blocky, slow-moving, more regime-like weather pattern. So I'm encouraged because we have this, because typically when we continue to have positive atmospheric angular momentum, we usually don't have too much to worry about in terms of moisture. It means the weather pattern stays variable and doesn't get locked into one thing. That can be problematic, okay? Now, the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, is also a key player here. It's forecast through mid-June. This is from the European Extended, all right? So there we were on the 17th. Here we are, all right? We've made this full circle around here. 17th of May, here we go. In the colored line, did you see how it comes back here to null space and then kind of pops out here into phase 7? Weak phase 7 right here. I want to see weak phase 7, all right? I want to, and I will show you why in just a second. What about the Bureau of Meteorology Extended? Well, here it is. It pops up here through phase 6, 7, and it spends a lot of time out here in phase 7 and phase 8. Okay, really important. And again, that is through the middle part of June. What does that mean for us? Well, the GFS ensemble through the middle of June, it has a stronger signal that comes around like this. But notice where it spends some time here. All right, comes out of phase 6 and favors phase 7 and phase 8 as we head through at least the first half of June. There's still, I mean, a lot of work to be done here with exactly how strong that MJO event is going to be. You saw the other models that weren't as strong as this event. So we'll have to monitor it. But the fact that they're favoring eventually coming out of 6 and into phase 7 and phase 8, here's what we look at. Here's phase 6 right here. Okay? We had moisture coming up through the middle part of the country. What do we got here with phase 7? Well, look at the moisture here through Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, parts of those west and southwest high plains. We've also got moisture east, okay? And if we're going to spend some time in phase 8, we have, look at the wetness here, okay? All of those areas show wetter than average. So the fact that we have a good chance of spending time in these phases, and even if it comes around to phase 1 here, you see what we've got up here. We're still wet the farther west and southwest you go. So there's a lot to grasp on here about this favorable pattern change. I mean, anything's going to be more favorable than what we have, right? Okay. What about temperatures? Well, if we're in phase 6, we have warmth in the east, all right? Phase 7, we replace that, and the warmth gets a little more focused to the west. Phase 8, we see that warmth kind of coming back here to the upper Midwest. And phase 1, if we did that, we would cool things off. But if we favor, all right, somewhere between this phase 7 and phase 8, we've got a little bit more of a variable temperature pattern here. We're not just locked in to see that major heat come back. And I think that's important. And the more water we are able to shove in the ground during this period of time, really for the next 2 to 4 weeks, I've said this many, many times to my clients, the next 2 to 4 weeks, so critical. Because if we put water in the ground, we will beat this drought back. We will continue to erode it. We will slow down and start to reverse the pattern that has gotten us here. All right. And I think we're putting on the brakes right now. All right. Now we've just got to reverse it. And there's some optimism here that shows why we would. The other part of this is the Southern Oscillation Index, because we saw where we were here. February, way positive. La Nina here. April took a huge dive. All right. And then here recently, you can kind of see what we've done. We kind of came back up out of that, and then we've dropped again. But the one thing that the Southern Oscillation Index for the past 30 days is pretty much on par with where we were for April. The 90-day is now dropped below 0, and it is negative, and it's likely to stay that way. All right. So what's going to govern this going forward? Well, here's our zonal wind anomaly forecast, basically a measure of what our trade winds are going to be doing down there along the equator from today right through June 3rd. So wherever you're seeing the blues, that was easterlies. Wherever you're seeing these yellow, oranges, reds, big westerlies. These are big westerly wind bursts. And I'm really focused on this one here, okay, that kind of commences around May 25th, right here, because look what it does. And even down here in early June, we continue with that strong westerly wind burst right there. So no easterlies here at all. We're talking full-on westerly wind burst. And then over here in the Indian Ocean, okay, we have those easterlies, which help go into your positive Indian Ocean dipole, all right, way over here in the Indian Ocean. But I'm really focused on this. What that means for the Southern Oscillation Index. This is the European extended forecast for the month of June. It's this pressure anomaly, all right? And anywhere you're seeing this blue over here, this indicates a negative Southern Oscillation Index, because what you have going on over here, you have high pressure in Indonesia, in Australia, and generally, and I'm going to put the bullseye here, all right, but it's really a general negative sea level pressure anywhere here, and especially over here around Tahiti, all right? So when you have high pressure over here, low pressure, that's a negative Southern Oscillation Index. That's negative, and it's likely to keep going negative. And a way we can talk about that, and I was really adamant to folks that I spoke with, because a lot of them say, oh, well, we're not going to see any El Nino impacts until the fall. That's not true. That is not true. What we are witnessing right now is an El Nino impact, okay? It just is. So when we look at this, all right, this is a measure of vertical motion in the atmosphere and how we're rolling. So where you're seeing the greens, that's positive motion. Where you're seeing the browns, that's negative motion, sinking air. Look what happens here. Do you see the green and how it expands and dominates over here across, parts of, the Eastern Pacific? That is an El Nino impact. Conversely, you have all this brown that's over here. That's all that sinking air. So what we end up with is this perpetuating pattern of lift and moisture here over in the East Pacific. That is a favorable trend, and that's a favorable pattern change due to the rapidly developing El Nino. Okay? Now let's look at the European extended temperature and precipitation anomaly forecast for June. Here's your upper level weather pattern that's supposed to be prevailing. Okay? Trough out here. That keeps pieces of energy coming out here in the plains to tap that moisture. Temperature-wise, a little warmer than average west. No heat signal anywhere east. And precipitation anomaly-wise, we have really seen a rapid decrease in the amount of dryness here in the middle part of the country being forecast. All right? Take this model with a grain of salt. We're looking at the trends. We're looking at the trends here. Okay? Current state of the oceans. This is where we were on January 1st. Okay? La Nina. This is where we are now. All right? And I always am watching the Gulf of Alaska, Bering Sea. If we see expanding cold water up here this way, I always worry about that, but we're not seeing that. I think a lot of this cooler than average water up here is tied to the storm systems that have been moving through up there. Okay, watching it, but what we've got here, cold water here in parts of the Atlantic, warming Indian Ocean dipole, and certainly a budding El Nino here. This looks beneath the surface. Still a ton of warm water beneath the surface that will effectively come to the surface. Maybe not to this magnitude, obviously, but it's still there. The warmer we make that surface out there, the longer we keep it warm, the more negative the southern oscillation gets. Do you see how the atmosphere and the ocean are working together here? They're working together. And you can see that since February, where we started out down here in negative territory, we're all the way up here above 1 degree Celsius. We've effectively changed that body of water out there by 1.3 degrees Celsius in that amount of time since February. Most rapid change from La Nina to El Nino that I've ever witnessed. And you know what the models are. Okay, they all go up here. Strong El Nino. I'm not sure what strength we're going to be, but I would say a lot of my gut says that we're going to be up there around +3. That'd be a record. All right, we'll worry about that later. But all these models point to the continued development of this strong El Nino. Bureau of Meteorology out of Australia, the latest or the newest relative Nino index, okay, which measures, technically is a better measurement for where the global sea surface temperatures are nowadays, right, is up there at 2.8 by October. So both these models are saying record setter. Before we look at the analogs, because I'm not going to dig into the models, you know what the models are. And to be honest, I really don't want to go into them, all right, because they're just modeling. But I want to look at some analogs here. But keep this in mind. Searching for one perfect analog, don't do it. Fool's errand. It's not just about El Nino. I've shown you a lot of different things other than El Nino that are impactful. Every ENSO event is different nuances. And are we great at seasonal forecasts? No, we're not. We're always watching it, monitoring it, massaging it, and paying attention. So if you're looking at seasonal forecast material one day and you don't check back in for 4 months, it's your fault. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not how this works. So let's look at these potential precipitation analogs, okay? June through November 2026. We're just looking at precipitation. These are the analogs for June. They haven't changed, okay? Green and blues is where we have historically been wetter than average during June. Yellows to reds is where we've been drier. So you can see kind of what we talked about, wetter through that corridor, all right, for June. A little drier up here in parts of the Midwest. What about July? July somewhat checkerboarded in the middle, but look who usually dries out during a budding El Nino. A lot of Texas. I've said this a lot, that I have been concerned about the development of flash drought in Texas, especially east of that line, okay? East of that line. Even into southeast Oklahoma, maybe up here into southeast Kansas, where you've had some good rain, okay, as of late. But I'm worried about flash drought during the heart of summer down there across East Texas, Gulf Coast region, especially after all the water you're going to get over the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, all right? But notice the uptick in wetter stuff here. And again, it's never perfect everywhere, but you see the idea here. August, big monsoon wet signal here, still kind of drying out or dry in those areas. A little wetter here in parts of the Corn Belt, nothing huge up here, being dry, a little bit mixed. September, probably a banger of an Eastern Pacific hurricane season. We've got moisture still up here. We're still dry somewhat down here. Wetter in the middle. October, active subtropical jet comes in. A little bit drier here. Central Kansas and eastward. Wetter west and southwest. And November, okay, you can kind of connect the dots, right? With that active subtropical jet, we are drier up here. We could probably extend some of that dryness over the top too. Because historically, we dry out and warm up north, and we cool off and get wetter farther south. Especially the stronger the El Nino signal typically, the more of an influence we have down here with this subtropical jet. And I get why folks were talking about maybe we wouldn't see impacts until later in the fall. But, you know, the thing is, we're seeing impacts now. So we can't just say we haven't seen impacts. You know, talk to the folks in Northeast Colorado, Northwest Kansas, beating back that drought, all right? Super important that that's been the case. We have a lot of work to do, folks. And my message again, be measured going forward with this. We have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to happen all at once. Folks, thanks so much for supporting me. Thanks so much for listening here on the Desert Farmer Podcast. I hope this information is useful. Please give me all the feedback you want, and I'll try not to make it so long next time before I talk to you. You folks have a great evening. We'll be chatting with you again right here on the Desert Farmer Podcast. Take care.